I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. I met Lisa when I was 28, and she was a fiery, smart, and fiercely independent woman. We clicked instantly. She was the kind of girl who always had an answer, always had a comeback, and she kept me on my toes. We got serious pretty fast, and for a while I thought we were perfect. Or at least I convinced myself we were. We started talking about marriage around the 2-year mark, and I knew she was the one I wanted to spend my life with. I proposed on a quiet evening, just me and her, at the park where we first met. I was nervous as hell, but she said yes with tears in her eyes, and I felt like I was on top of the world. That was about 3 months ago. Things seemed perfect at first. We were planning our wedding, telling everyone we knew how much we loved each other, and I genuinely believed everything was headed in the right direction. But then, small things started to bother me. Lisa became more secretive. She was always on her phone, hiding it when I came into the room. Sometimes I'd catch her deleting messages or clearing her browsing history. She'd brush it off, call me paranoid or insecure. "You've got trust issues," she'd say. "There's nothing there." I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't shake this feeling that something was wrong. Then there was her attitude. She became bitchier, sharper with her words, more dismissive of my concerns. She'd snap at me over small things, forgetting my birthday, ignoring my calls, or making excuses for not being able to meet up. I brushed it off as stress, maybe pre-wedding jitters, but deep down I knew something else was happening. It didn't feel right anymore. One night I came home early from work thanks to a bad storm. I decided to surprise her, thinking we could have an early dinner and talk. The house was strangely quiet. The lights were still on, but I noticed her car was missing from the driveway. That wasn't unusual. She often went out with her friends, but a weird feeling crept up my gut. I checked the house first. Everything seemed normal, but I felt that nagging sensation that I couldn't shake off. Then I saw her phone lying on the table, unlocked, with a message pop up. It was from Jake, her best friend's brother. I didn't even need to read much to know what it was about. The message was flirty, a little too suggestive, and there were emojis I'd never seen her use before. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart pounding. I knew Lisa was lying about her whereabouts that night, and I had this sinking feeling that I'd finally caught her red-handed. I decided to wait. I hid in the shadows by the window, watching her come back. When she finally did, I saw her sneaking in, looking over her shoulder like she was scared of being caught. That's when I saw Jake's car pulling up behind her. I felt like I was watching a bad movie, but it was real. My mind was racing, trying to process what I just saw, but the proof was there, plain as day. My wife, my fiancée, was cheating on me, no doubt about it. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely betrayed. The moment I saw her slip inside with Jake's car, parked just a few feet away, I couldn't breathe. My hands were clenched, my mind racing a mile a minute. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but everything pointed to one terrible truth. Lisa had been lying to me all along. They were sneaking out at dawn, probably for something more than just a friendly chat or a quick coffee. I knew in my gut that they'd been messing around, and that realization hit me like a punch to the stomach. I stayed frozen outside, watching her tiptoe into the house like she was afraid someone might see her. I felt a strange mixture of anger, sadness, and just pure disbelief. How could she do this? How could she betray me right after I proposed? I kept replaying that moment in my head, the way she looked at me, the way she said she loved me, and then how she was sneaking around with someone else behind my back. It was a crushing blow. I knew I had to confront her, but I wanted to do it on my own terms. I waited until she was inside, then quietly snuck into my car and drove to a nearby park. I needed to think to get my head straight. When I sat there alone in the dark, my mind kept circling back to her lies, her bitchy attitude lately, and how everything suddenly made sense. She'd been hiding something. I could see it now. The way she'd snap at me, the way she'd avoid eye contact, the way she'd change the subject when I asked about her plans. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept going over what I'd seen, trying to piece everything together. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The worst part was knowing she had lied so convincingly, so effortlessly. I'd always trusted her, and now I felt like a fool for not seeing the signs earlier. I knew I couldn't just brush this off or pretend it wasn't real anymore. The next day, I decided I had to confront her. I waited until she was home from whatever she was doing, probably with Jake or whoever else she was sneaking around with. When she came into the house, I was already waiting in the living room, my arms crossed and my face cold. She saw me, her eyes narrowing, her usual bitchy smirk already in place. "What are you looking at? What's your problem?" she snapped, trying to act like everything was fine. I took a deep breath. "Lisa, I saw your message. I saw Jake's car last night. Do you want to tell me what the hell is going on?" My voice was steady, but inside I was trembling. She froze for a second, then gave me that fake, innocent look like she was the victim. "Oh, it's nothing," she said, brushing it off like she was annoyed I even brought it up. "Just a misunderstanding. You're overreacting." I didn't buy it. Not for a second. "A misunderstanding? Seriously? You've been sneaking around with him at dawn, lying about where you're going, and you call it a misunderstanding?" My voice cracked a little. "How long has this been going on? How many times have you lied to me?" She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms like I was the one who was crazy. "You're imagining things. Jake's just a friend. We were talking about some stuff. It's not a big deal." Her tone was dismissive, bitchy almost. I saw right through her. She was lying again, trying to gaslight me like I was stupid for even doubting her. At that moment, I felt a rush of anger and heartbreak. How could she do this? Why me? I'd been loyal, honest, and I'd proposed to her because I loved her. And now I was standing here feeling like an idiot, knowing she'd been sleeping around with her best friend's brother. I wanted to yell, to scream, but I kept my cool, because I knew deep down I had to plan my next move. I couldn't just let her get away with this. Not after everything. After that confrontation, I couldn't even look at her the same way. The girl I loved, the girl I was about to marry, was nothing like the woman standing in front of me. She was a liar, a cheat, and honestly, a bitch about it. I felt sick every time I thought about how she'd been sneaking around behind my back, all while pretending to be the perfect fiancé. It was like she'd been lying for so long, she started to believe her own bullshit. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept tossing and turning, replaying every moment, her sneaking out the messages, her callous attitude. I knew I couldn't stay quiet. I had to come up with a plan, something to make her pay for what she'd done. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. I wanted to hurt her back, to make her feel what I was feeling. I decided I'd get revenge, but in a way that would hit her where it hurt most, emotionally, psychologically. First, I started digging. I found her social media accounts, her texts, her emails. I wanted everything, every little detail of her lies and her affair. I also reached out to some old friends, people I knew who were into this kind of thing, and I got some information about Jake. Turns out he wasn't just a casual fling. They'd been seeing each other for months. I also found out that Lisa had lied about her whereabouts so many times I lost count. She'd been cheating on me with Jake, her best friend's brother, and she didn't even bother to hide it anymore. I spent days gathering evidence, planning my next steps. I wanted to humiliate her, to make her see that I wasn't some fool who'd be played for a fool. I started dropping hints, making sure she knew I was onto her. I even planted some not-so-subtle clues, like leaving her phone in plain sight with a message from Jake visible, or telling a mutual friend I had my suspicions. The goal was to make her nervous, to push her into a corner where she couldn't lie her way out of it anymore. And then one day I decided to escalate. I cracked her email account, and that's when I found what I was looking for: proof of countless encounters, explicit messages, plans to meet up. I felt a sick thrill seeing it all laid out. It confirmed everything I'd suspected, even more. She'd been lying, cheating, betraying me for months. I was furious, but I kept my cool. I knew once I confronted her with all this, there'd be no going back. I finally decided to confront her again, but this time I was prepared. I sat her down and laid everything out, every message, every secret rendezvous, every lie. Her face twisted into a mix of guilt, anger, and defiance. She started lying again, calling me crazy, throwing out accusations that I was just jealous or insecure. That only made my blood boil more. I told her it was over, that I could trust her anymore. I was done playing her game. Her reaction was priceless. She went into full bitch mode, yelling, calling me names, saying I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything. But I'd heard enough. I was beyond caring what she thought. I just wanted her gone, out of my life forever. I couldn't believe I'd almost married a woman capable of such betrayal. It felt like my whole world was crashing down around me. After I laid out all the evidence, her facade crumbled. She looked at me with this condescending sneer, trying to dismiss everything. "You're overreacting," she spat, voice trembling with anger. "You're just insecure. Jake's just a friend. I don't know what you're so worked up about." She was lying again, that bitchy tone she always used when she thought she was winning. I saw through it, but what surprised me was how defensive she got. Like she was trying to protect her world, her lies, her secret life. I felt the anger boiling over. How could she even look me in the eyes and lie so blatantly? I wanted to shake her, to scream at her for all the pain she caused. But instead, I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. I knew I had to act carefully. Revenge wasn't just about hurting her. It was about making her understand what she had thrown away, what she had lost. I told her I wasn't interested in any more lies, that I was done. I told her I was leaving, but I wanted her to know she'd lost everything: my trust, my respect, my love. I was planning on making her regret it, in some way that hit her where it mattered. I didn't want her to think she could just cheat and get away with it. I wanted her to feel the pain, to understand that her actions had consequences. The night I threw her out was one of the hardest nights of my life. She screamed, called me names, said I was ruining her life, but I didn't care. I packed my things, didn't say much, and left her standing there, still trying to deny everything. As I shut the door behind me, I felt like I'd just closed the chapter on a nightmare. It was over. Or so I thought. In the following days, I kept my distance. I let her stew in her own lies while I focused on myself. I blocked her on social media, changed my phone number, and tried to piece my life back together. But the pain didn't go away. Every time I saw her name or thought about that night, I felt this cold, bitter anger. She had been so bitchy, so dismissive of me, even when I was trying to be understanding. And all the while, she was screwing around with her best friend's brother. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I also started talking to some friends, people I trusted, to get perspective. Honestly, I was feeling like the biggest idiot in the world. How could I have missed all the signs? How could I have loved someone so manipulative? I kept going over everything, trying to find some reason, some way to make sense of it all. But there was no sense. Just a deep, gnawing pain and an aching sense of betrayal. I knew I'd eventually have to decide what to do with my life. Do I try to forgive, forget, and move on? Or do I cut her out completely and start fresh? Honestly, I didn't have an answer yet. All I knew was I wasn't going back. Not to her. Not to that hell she'd created. I'd been played, used, lied to. I felt like a fool. But at least now I had the truth, and nobody could take that away from me. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking around in some kind of fog. Part of me wanted to believe I could somehow salvage what was left, maybe forgive her and pretend it never happened. But deep down, I knew that was a lie. Once the trust is broken this badly, it's gone. You can't just glue it back together. Every time I thought about her, I felt this sharp ache inside, like I'd lost a part of myself I'd never get back. I started to realize that revenge didn't necessarily mean hurting her physically or doing something destructive. I wanted to make her feel what I was feeling, and that meant exposing her for what she truly was. So I took everything I had collected, those explicit messages, the proof of her affair, the lies she told, and I started to plan my final move. I wasn't just going to confront her again. I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. I reached out to her best friend, Emily, the one person who might actually listen and understand. I told her everything about Lisa's cheating, her lies, the sneaking out at dawn with Jake. Emily was furious, and she couldn't believe her best friend could be so manipulative. She promised to confront Lisa, and I told her to be careful. I didn't want any more drama, but I wanted her to know what her friend was capable of. Meanwhile, I started turning the tables on Lisa. I sent her anonymous messages, nothing threatening, just enough to make her nervous, to keep her guessing. I wanted her to feel insecure, to see that her lies were catching up with her. I also shared some of the evidence with a few close friends, people I trusted, to make sure she knew she was exposed. I wasn't trying to destroy her completely, but I wanted her to see that her lies could only hold up for so long before the truth came crashing down. One day I got a call from Emily. She told me Lisa had finally cracked under the pressure. She had admitted everything about Jake, the sneaking out, the lies. She was crying and begging Emily not to tell me, but Emily told her it was too late. That was the moment I knew I'd won in my own way. Not in a vindictive, spiteful sense, but in the sense that I finally had what I needed, the truth. I guess I wanted her to see the damage she had done, not just to me but to herself. I never wanted to hurt her physically, but I wanted her to feel the weight of betrayal, the loneliness of being caught in her own lies. Deep down, I also knew I deserved better. After all, I had been loyal, patient, and honest, and she had thrown it all away for some fleeting thrill. I had to decide whether to try to rebuild my life or just cut her out completely. Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. I didn't want to live in a world where I was constantly looking over my shoulder for another betrayal. I wanted peace, even if it meant starting over from scratch. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me. I used to think love meant trusting blindly, giving your heart without question. But after everything, I see it's about respect and honesty, things she completely threw away. The hardest part was not just losing her, but feeling like I'd been so blind, so naive. I kept asking myself how I could have missed the signs, how I could have been so stupid to think she was the one. When I finally cut ties and moved out, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. On one hand, I was free from her lies and manipulations. On the other, I was mourning the loss of the future we'd planned, the dreams I had of a happy life with her. But I knew I couldn't stay in that place of pain forever. I had to rebuild to find myself again. Over the next few months, I focused on myself. I started seeing a therapist, and honestly, it helped a lot. I needed to process everything, the betrayal, the anger, the sadness. I also started hitting the gym, trying to regain some sense of control over my life. It was hard, but slowly, I began to feel like I was regaining my strength. I learned to trust myself again, to listen to that little voice inside that told me what was right and what was wrong. And you know what? I learned some valuable lessons from all this. Never ignore the warning signs, even if they seem small. Trust your instincts because they're often right. And most importantly, don't stay in a toxic situation just because you're afraid of being alone or starting over. I realized I deserved better, more honesty, more respect, more loyalty. Her betrayal was a wake-up call, but it also set me free. Now I'm single, and honestly, it's the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. I don't regret any of it because it taught me to value myself more. I know there are still moments of pain, those little triggers that remind me of what I lost, but I also know I'm stronger than I was before. I've learned that revenge isn't about hurting others. It's about reclaiming yourself and walking away from what no longer serves you. So, if there's anything I want to leave you with, it's this: trust is precious. Guard it carefully. And if someone betrays you, don't be afraid to walk away, no matter how much it hurts. Because in the end, the only person you really have to rely on is yourself. And after all this, I know I'm finally doing that.